Hello and welcome to Pop Culture Shark, the greatest pop culture live stream on the planet. I'm Final Monkey.
And I'm Caleb. Today is a very exciting day. This is a day that we've been hyping up for, I'd say we've been hyping this up for months because we keep talking about how we're going to do this. And then last month I said, you know what? Here's the thing. If we plan it now, it will force me to finish the game. And so for the past month, it's been really hyped up. I'm very excited. We're going to be doing a deep dive into the chasms of Hyrule
I was gonna say that, yeah. The
with Tears of the Kingdom. But before we get into that, how's your week been?
it's been pretty good. I finished up Pikmin 4. Um, and by
Don't expect a
fin-
spoiler cast. We're not gonna do a
yeah,
spoiler cast of that
yeah.
one.
And by finished up, I mean there's still stuff, some side missions and stuff to do, but the main story, I
Oh
uh,
yeah. I
I,
mean,
I finished up.
I haven't finished Tears of the Kingdom. Like I 100% of Breath of the Wild. I just beat the final boss.
Yeah, the storyline I finished. Um, it was a good game. I still think Pikmin 2 is a little better,
Okay.
but yeah, I entered that final cavern with 100 Pikmin. We got out there with 44 Pikmin. So yeah, it got harder at the end.
Okay.
Um, so that was fun. Um, and then I finished reading the first 100 issues of Ninja Turtles IDW finally.
Did you stop or did you like keep going?
I'm taking a break right now.
Sure.
I've got the next volumes, but I gotta get reading on X Men since we're doing that here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Um, when is that episode? Is it the first week in September or the second week?
I believe it is the first week. So that would actually be next week. We'll have to decide how far we're gonna go and specifically because I Uncanny X Force was pretty simple. I do want to make this a little bit more complicated because I actually would like to take a look at AVX as well, just because I love it so much.
Yeah, so I went ahead and started reading that. So I've read through Schism, and then I'm about to start the Wolverine the X Men series. Um, so yeah, I've been reading through that, and so back to Ninja Turtles. It didn't quite end the way I thought it would. I mean, some of the things I knew just from some spoilers I'd seen over the years, um, but they kind of stepped back a little bit from the Turtles versus Splinter final confrontation, which I was fine with because they kind of got out of their system in the Christmas Carol story where Splinter saw the vision of what was going to happen if he continued on that path. Um,
How do you feel about like a major story like that ending with a Christmas Carol?
well, I mean that was like 10 issues before issue 100, so it was like kind of building up to that, and then it turned more into a Karai stepping in, trying to take over the Foot Clan from Splinter, and then the
Oh,
fallout from that.
She would.
Yeah, Karai. Karai's
Karai,
interesting because they're
she,
always like, is she gonna stay a villain or is she gonna become a hero? And so you never quite know what she's going to do. So,
she's kind of like what Talia al Ghul used to be.
hmm
But ever since Grant Morrison, Talia al Ghul is an absolutely evil person.
right.
So, I mean, I pretty much as soon as you introduce Damien, like he's got to have that conflict with somebody.
Mm.
But yeah, I love Cry. Cry was uh, if the Ninja Turtles were humans, the will they won't they between Leonardo and Karai would be so interesting, and it still is, um, but not as much because he's a turtle.
Yeah, it gets weird when they start dabbling into that, but I get it. They are they are male turtles. They have hormones, and I like it when there are no female turtles. I think once you start introducing female turtles, and it's not that I don't like female characters, it's that there have been stories where there's a finality to the turtles where they're like, hey, we are never going to have children. One day when we die, that is it. That is the end of the Ninja Turtles. So then once you start introducing, Jenica or these other female characters, then it's like, okay, you're taking away part of the thing that makes it interesting,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the other thing I did was I bought Vampire Survivors again, and I'm addicted again on the Switch. So,
I didn't know they came out. I might have to pick that up.
Yeah, it's on. I mean, it's only $5, but it's on sale right now for like $4.50 or something. So,
okay.
And it's got all the DLC on there, and the DLC is like less than $2, so I might end up getting that eventually. So,
does it have the co-op on there?
Yes, yeah, it has a 4-player co-op. I haven't had a chance to try it yet, but
I'm gonna try that with Cameron.
Did you see that Excite Bike 64 is coming to the Switch Online?
I did. I've actually never played that one.
It has a really fun 4-player soccer mode on there,
like Rocket League.
Basically, yeah. But it's funny because you don't really have good control over the motorcycle, so you're trying to hit the ball and you go flying past the goal. And
are you telling me that it's a bad game with bad controls, but playing soccer makes it fun?
I don't think it's a bad game. I just think it's funny. It's just okay. You're trying to play soccer on motorcycles. It's ridiculous. Oh, and then my youngest has a birthday this weekend, so we went out to a place called Free Play that we have down here, where you pay like $12. You get to play unlimited pinball and arcade machines and stuff. So,
gotcha. That's sick.
Playing a little X-Men versus Street Fighter last night, and Killer Queen Black, and some old games and stuff. So a bunch of pinball games and stuff. It was fun last night.
We went to Rec. So it is Wing Week in Louisville. And we went to this place in Louisville called Rec Bar, which is a barcade. And they had specials on wings. Cameron and I went there, and they have this entire warehouse full of so they got like their games in the restaurant, and then adjacent to that is a warehouse where they have all their pinball games.
Okay.
And so I went in there, and they have the new Foo Fighters pinball machine. Probably the best pinball machine I've ever played.
Nice.
But anyway, as far as my week, speaking of turtles, I live in Louisville. We have a sports team, the sport being soccer or football. And so we go. My parents have season tickets, and so the camera and I go occasionally. Well, last night was TMNT night, and that was a lot of fun. They had videos, and it was sponsored by Nickelodeon, so they had videos of the players getting slimed. Of course, they didn't slime them at the game because they still had to play. But yeah, they got Nickelodeon slime. People came in dressed, and our color is purple, so everyone came in with Donatello stuff, and it was really cool.
That's cool.
And their warm-up kits, because in soccer they don't come out and warm up in their regular kits or uniforms. They come out in warm-up kits. Well, their warm-up kits they had the Ninja Turtles on them. This was all Mutant Mayhem stuff too. So and what they did was at the end of the game, the players each signed their kit, and then they auctioned each one of them off.
Nice.
But yeah, that was a lot of fun. Other than that, we watched Ahsoka. It's pretty good. It is boring. But the second episode picks up. Dave Filoni just does not know how to direct.
I've heard it described as like you're watching a video game, like cutscenes or just NPC conversations and stuff.
So that is what Cameron said. Cameron said Ahsoka is like watching '90s and 2000s Star Wars cutscenes, and I'm like, you know what? What a recommendation and an insult at the same time. uh, but yeah,
Well, I've heard like and when you point out when people point out, I noticed it too. Like in I guess Mandalorian, like when he goes see Bo-Katan, she's just sitting in a throne room with nothing in the throne room. It's like, are you just sitting here just waiting for someone to come talk to you? Like,
yeah,
like what's going on here? Yeah,
yeah. It very very similar. But episode 2 really picked up. Really, the problem is episode 1 was an hour long, and it really you could have cut that in half. Dave Filoni just doesn't know what to leave on the cutting room floor, and so he just puts everything in.
Okay, so you're the first semi-positive review I've heard of Ahsoka.
And you know what? I'm fine with that. I understand why some people don't like it. I've heard glowing reviews, and those glowing reviews kind of piss me off. Because well, I mean, it's because of who that glowing review is coming from.
Gotcha.
I'm not trying to start any beef, but like, I personally don't like, and I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'm not a fan of Star Wars Theory. But he's got these ambitions of what this show is going to become, about going to another galaxy with different, and I'm like, I don't think you know what this show is about. I think you're intentionally getting yourself overhyped so that you can be disappointed again.
And that's something that, as I've gotten older, I've had to learn not to do, because you get yourself so overhyped. Like, oh, you know what they're gonna do with Thanos and Marvel? Da, 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 da. They're gonna do Infinity Gauntlet beat for beat, and then when they don't, you're like, oh, okay.
Oh my god! Like, the Zant is the hero of time.
Yes.
But you know what? On that note, because I wanted to keep weekend check-in about 10 minutes long. We're going to skip news. We want to get straight into it. Let's talk Tears of the Kingdom.
Let's do it.
So for this one, we can go ahead and just, I know Tears of the Kingdom spoilers, bottom screen spoilers and whatnot. However, let's go ahead and just take that off. Just very briefly, maybe 5 minutes, broad strokes, spoiler free thoughts. And you finished this a while ago, so you have more of an afterglow effect. Like, I'm still kind of in the honeymoon phase, but
Yeah.
you can attest to the staying power of this game.
I think that most people, like 95% of people, thought, because there are some people who are like, I didn't like it, loved Breath of the Wild, and this is so much better than Breath of the Wild. I think that's the best way to describe it. That Breath of the Wild was, I've heard it described as Breath of the Wild was the tech demo. This is the actual game. And
which is funny, because Xenoblade Chronicles was the tech demo for Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, and and we'll talk about this. I'm so curious where they go with the next game, if they continue this or not.
So I have my, stay tuned to the end, folks. Not only do I have 2 lore theories to drop on you, but I've also got a really hot take about the future of Zelda.
And you know how Caleb's hot takes are. We never know what he's going to say.
I think this one is actually well-founded. I've told some people, and at first they're like, wait, what? They'll never do that. And then whenever I explain it, they're like, I could definitely see that.
And you never know. So sometimes our theories are way out there, but like my wish list for Pikmin 4, like almost everything on my wish list is in Pikmin 4. So you never know how these things will turn out. And it could be, none of Caleb's theories get in there, but we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that I think Tears of the Kingdom is just a, Breath of the Wild was so good, but Tears of the Kingdom is just so much better. And they really knocked it out of the park. Is it flawless? No, I could point out some things I didn't like about the game, but it is such a fun game, and such an experience. I highly recommend the game.
So as far as myself, objectively, this is the best Zelda game. Now I will say, as far as I can pull myself back and say objectively this is the best Zelda game, while also still being in denial. I've had a lot of people say, no, this is way better than Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess. I've accepted that I'm still in denial. This game is close to overtaking Twilight Princess as the number 2 spot for me. So
And
we'll see
that's
about
just your
that.
personal, your personal preferences. Because I agree. A lot of times I'll like with movies, I'll say, oh, that movie on a technical level is the best movie. It's not my favorite movie, but it's the
Right.
best movie. And I think that's what you're saying here about Tears of the
Exactly.
Kingdom. So.
But this is objectively the best Zelda game. As far as the best game on the Switch, I still think Metroid Dread edges it out. I think Metroid Dread is actually the best game on the Switch, but this is definitely number 2. And I wish I could recommend this over Breath of the Wild, but I feel like everything in this game necessitates you playing Breath of the Wild as well, in my opinion, as a Zelda fan.
Yeah, I think you appreciate it more if you
Yeah.
like. You can't play it the other order. You can't play Tears of the Kingdom first and then play Breath of the Wild. You'll be so disappointed.
Yeah, definitely.
You will hate Breath of the Wild. you have to play them in order. So,
yeah.
All right, so let's get to spoilers because I think that's the best way to describe non-spoilery without spoiling anything.
Definitely.
So, this was the opening cutscene, and we saw this in the trailers, and it's a heck of a way to start a Zelda game. Zelda and Link exploring underneath the cavern and what they find, the hieroglyphics, and then the finding Ganondorf's body.
Also, note that Zelda is wearing Link's hood from Breath of the Wild. I'm going to bring that up here in a second. Yeah, just starting off, and we're full on spoilers. Let's go ahead and get this out of the way. They market the sky so much. We had no idea about the depths, and the depths are the most important part of the game.
Yeah, and just you may bring this up later when you talk about her hood. We don't quite know what Zelda and Link's relationship is. We get hints. Yeah. We get some pretty strong hints when you get to Link's house and stuff. But
that is actually what I was going to bring up. Yes, is the fact that it's very clear that they are living together. And I mean, her wearing his hood, I mean, that's kind of like, high school giving your girl your Letterman jacket,
Yeah, but they kind of leave it. I mean, it's definitely there that they are in some type of relationship, but they also leave it vague enough that the crazy shippers online can say, "Oh, I think Link should be a so and so."
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, it's different Links, like Hero of Time and Zelda, I don't see that,
Yeah.
But I think the Hero of the Sky with Zelda, I think that one's pretty explicit, and this one comes pretty close. So we, instead of just bringing that up later, we got that one out of the way, so I don't have to mention that. But yeah, so there is essentially what's happening is there is the story of the game is there is a gloom rising up from the chasms of Hyrule that is causing sickness and is causing their weapons to deteriorate and rust. And so
which is a great plot point to explain away something that was in Breath of the Wild that was annoying, that your swords were constantly breaking. And here they're like, oh, yeah, there's a reason.
Yes, and I think they do the durability system way better in this game.
Yeah.
But
then let me talk about Zelda real quick. I feel like she's way more proactive in this game. You see that her just everywhere you go, she has had an effect on all the communities. Everybody's talking about her constantly, and the things that she has done since Breath of the Wild. And I think the NPCs overall are more proactive. They're all busy doing stuff instead of just being like, "Oh, hey, Link." It felt more lived in.
This is so Breath of the Wild is kind of like um, Breath of the Wild is definitely kind of like a post-apocalyptic game. This is the rebuilding.
Yeah.
Which is super cool. But anyway, as they're going through the depths, they come across what looks to be a lich with a hand on his chest. This lich ends up being Ganondorf. And he has like this gloom, and gloom and malice are very similar, and that will be brought up at the end. But kind of launches like a beam of gloom at both Link and Zelda. And I mean, Link gets absolutely mopped. His arm is basically destroyed. The Master Sword is destroyed. Whoops. His arm is destroyed. And Zelda falls deeper into the chasm, and Link blacks out.
Is this the best opening section of a Zelda game?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Not even a question. So I guess as far as this really reminds me of Link's dream at the beginning of Ocarina of Time, whenever he has the dream of Zelda escaping Hyrule Castle and Ganondorf appearing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Very much the same. Now, at the same time, you could say, the beginning, because there is a sort of great plateau akin to Breath of the Wild in this game. So you could say from here to the end of the Great Plateau, I still think it's one of the best. Eventually, Link wakes up in this room of a awakening type thing, and he has this strange arm, and this arm being I don't remember when we find this out explicitly, but this is the arm of the Sage of Light, Rauru.
I mean, I think we find out before you leave Sky Island that it's his arm, but yeah, it's an interesting mechanic that having his arm and the different abilities and stuff that come along with it.
Yeah, and we'll get to the abilities here in a minute. Whenever we talk about explicitly gameplay, but I think that him having like this tattoo, this arm, like Link is very primal in this game, more so than Breath of the Wild, and it is so cool. Like this he is becoming my favorite of the heroes. But yeah, then it turns out he leaves the room. He is in the sky. This is just floating islands, very similar to Skyloft's Skyward Sword. And I think the coolest thing is that you can see the little bit of Skyward Sword, but at the same time, it has almost nothing to do with Skyward Sword.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, and this is what I think is one of the coolest parts of the game. is when you dive off the cliff and then the opening credits start. Just that music and the camera angles and everything is just really cool.
Yeah. And there's one thing that you'll have to accept, because whenever the game first came out, I had my other uncle who lives here talk to me about this, and he's like, it's not realistic, but you kind of have to accept it. Whenever you dive off of anything, water saves you. Doesn't matter.
Yep. Yeah, it is kind of ridiculous. The falling thousands of feet and then you hit a water and you're fine.
Yeah. So don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it. So essentially, this is where Link gets his mission. He gets Raru's abilities with his arm, which, like I said, we will go over those abilities later on in the show. This is just a quick and dirty synopsis before we, talk more. You dive down into to the land of Hyrule, outside of Hyrule Castle, and basically your mission is you got to find Princess Zelda. Ever since she, went down into that chasm, no one's seen her. They don't know where she's at. There's a camp outside Hyrule Castle that's kind of like your main base, and Hyrule Castle, and this whole, just like the Calamity, this is called the Upheaval, where land has risen from the ground, it is in the sky. Hyrule Castle is in the sky being held up by the gloom.
Yeah. And so finding Zelda, it's a huge part of the game. And it gets a little repetitive everywhere you go. You'll see visions of Zelda and then she'll disappear or act very strange. And it becomes quite apparent after a while that this is not Zelda. There's something wrong. Mm-hmm. Her behavior is all over the place.
As you go from temple to temple, which gasp, temples are back.
Yeah.
People talk about how, like, oh man, there's a monster in the temple. Yeah, I saw Zelda conjure it. Why would she have done that?
Yeah.
So it becomes very apparent, and so essentially, another task that you have is to gather the sages to help you fight Ganondorf, and you've got Tool. I'll go ahead and bring them up. I believe that's what we got going on next. Oh, here's Raru, looking like a goat. Very, very different from Ocarina of Time, where he's just an old man. But yeah, so you go to Hebra Mountain to help the Ritos, and Tulin is the descendant of the Sage of Wind, and he gives his oath to help fight the forces of evil with you. And this is where my favorite, out of anything in this game, my favorite gameplay element is the fact that once you get the Vow of Sages, they kind of become like assist characters, and you've got like your own party.
Mm-hmm.
And it is so cool. I never would have thought of that in a Legend of Zelda game, because I think that's another thing. Legend of Zelda games are normally very, and this could be said about Nintendo games in general, very lonely.
I think lonely is what I was going to say, because your character is out there on their own. You're on an adventure, but it's all up to you. And in this one, you have people to rely on you. There are several points when I was in the chasms, because you'll get jumped by several people down there.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes someone's following me, and I hear the music, but I don't quite know where they are. And my person in my party picks them off before I even saw them.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. there are times where they get on my nerves because what's the Goron's name?
Yunobu.
Yonobu. There are sometimes where you have to use him like in a boss fight or something, and he's just not where you want him to be.
Yeah.
That happens a lot. Him and the Gerudo girl. There's times where you're like, oh,
yeah. I think we can all agree that, like, if we're talking about as a party member, as and we'll get to the sage abilities as well, because I think the sage abilities are better in this game than they were in the last game as well.
And you said we're gonna get to abilities here in a second.
Yeah.
That's another cool thing about this game is it's a totally different ability system from Breath of the Wild.
Oh yeah.
And so you have to relearn the game, which is interesting.
Yeah. But out of the spoiler, well, of course it's spoilers, but out of the 5 party members, Tulin is the best. Like, I don't think that's a question.
Yeah, he's definitely the most useful.
As an ability, his ability is so great. As a party member, he picks people off from range with his bow and arrow. And you'll hear, like, he'll get his headshots and he'll stun other enemies for you. Like, Tulin's the best. And then you head your way over to Goron, to Death Mountain, and everyone's favorite. Everyone loves Yonobu.
Yeah,
everyone loves.
Yeah.
Everyone loves Yonobu Goro. So Yonobu's funny because, like, at first it didn't even register to me that he was acting like different. So the thing with Yonobu is he's got this mask on, and he's in charge of Yonobuko, which is like a company, and so he's like feeding everyone, like, essentially he's giving people salmonella, I guess. But they're all eating these.
That was more like meth or something. He was giving them
poisonous rocks. And it's because of this mask that Zelda gave him. And eventually you have to break it off of him, and he joins the party as well, and you go into the depths for the fire temple, which that one I didn't expect. I expected all the temples to be kind of in conjunction of where, like, the towns were, but the fire temple's in the depths. The coolest thing that it didn't even register to me is you go down into Death Mountain, and that is an entrance to the depths.
Mm-hmm.
That is so cool. Then you head over to Zora's domain, and whenever I say this is everyone's favorite, Yonobu, I'm being sarcastic, but everyone's favorite Sidon, I am not being sarcastic. Everyone loves Sidon. I love Sidon so much. He's so funny. But this is where it's interesting. Sidon is so emo and serious. And you kind of get the feeling that it's like, oh man, stuff's actually going down. And I love that characterization where it's like a character that normally, is fun-loving, and he kind of reminds me of All Might from My Hero Academia, like whenever he's like at the beginning. But you see him just so serious, and he's really taking his role seriously. That lets you know the stakes of the situation. And eventually Sidon becomes the king of the Zoras, and he's got a queen, which I'm sorry, Link Sidon shippers. But Sidon's got a wife now.
Yeah.
Which good for him.
The whole shipping community gets really weird and obsessed with stuff, like overly obsessed, and it's kind of like, you know what, guys, it's just a game. Just back off.
I think crack ships are funny, like Lucina and Spider-Man. Those are funny. But yeah. Anyway, then Sidon, which by the way, I didn't say this. Yonobu is the descendant of the Sage of Fire. Sidon is the descendant of the Sage of Water. Then after that, you head over to Gerudo, and you run into our good friend Riju, who is no longer a kid as she once was. And
I really liked her character.
oh, I love Riju. And Gibdos are back.
Yeah, it almost turns into, not quite, but it's kind of like a I can't think of what those games are called, but like the Zelda Warriors type game where
the Hyrule Warriors.
yeah, there's a section where it kind of turns into that for a little bit.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Not quite as in depth, but it was it's this moment of go here, defend here, and command the soldiers where they're going to go, and all this. And
oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. And what I find really fun, and here's the thing, that I love about this game. This game really rewards you for playing previous Zelda games, because it does not explain anything to you. You just have to be like, how did I beat Gibdos in the original Legend of Zelda? With the lantern. Let's see what fire arrow. Because here's the thing. Killing Gibdos, if you don't know how to do it, will take you forever. You shoot them with a...
You do know that the which fruit is it? The zap fruit kills them instantly, or it disables them instantly. You can just stab them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I said, but it doesn't explain any of that.
No, you don't know that. And I think zap fruit kills the skeletons or Stalfos instantly, also.
Yes.
And it does not explain that. That's one of the things about this game is they give you hundreds and hundreds of different types of materials and items, and you just have to figure out what does what.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you've played the previous, however many, like 20 Zelda games, and you remember stuff, and I'm like, I wonder if that works. Guess what? It probably does.
Yeah.
And so then you have the, I believe it is the Thunder Temple, or the Lightning Temple. I can't remember what it is. But anyway, she is the Sage of Thunder or Lightning. I can't remember which one. And then she joins your party. And then at this point, it is Link and his party of 4. It is so cool. It's like you're playing a Final Fantasy game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just to skip ahead, because I want to talk about the sages like together. Later on in the game, the Sage of Spirit is Minoru, who is the sister of Rauru, who you get much later than everyone else. There is a mission of the 5th Sage that you have to complete. And her ability is unlike anything I ever thought I would see in a Zelda game. And it's so insane.
I mean, she's almost a vehicle. You're riding around, and you can customize her. You can give her different weapons. It's basically linked right around the battle mech. It's
and like, do you remember like whenever everyone was making their own like Gundams, like with Ultra Hand?
Yeah.
I thought that was like out of left field, people just doing stuff. I didn't realize that Nintendo gave you one by default.
Yeah, it's in the game.
But yeah, you get her later. She's the sister of Rauru, and so she is the 5th Sage. Now there are, I believe, 6 Sage. Well,
Zelda.
So there's 7 sages. Rauru is the Sage of Light.
Yeah.
But yes. Anyway,
roll back to Minoru real quick.
Yeah.
We've discussed this before. She doesn't really have a temple. It's kind of just a boxing match, and then it's over to unlock her. It is. I mean, it's interesting, but I think it's the weakest of.
It's the easiest boss in the game.
Yeah, I think that section is. It's like I said, it's interesting because it's different, but it could have been better.
Yeah. And then we make our way to Hyrule Castle because we found Zelda. She is at Hyrule Castle. She's in the courtroom, or she's in like the Jedi Council room. You head there, and it turns out that she is Phantom Ganon.
So Phantom Ganon, up to this point, we have been encountering Phantom Ganon quite a bit, and you may not even know you're encountering Phantom Ganon because he's everywhere. There's these what they call gloom hands that come out of the ground. They're almost like floor masters. There's like a group of them, and the first few times you encounter them, I mean, they're always terrifying. I don't think I ever was a point where I was not terrified that those were appearing.
So,
I mean, you get to a point where you can defeat them really easy, but
I disagree. They are never. So here's the gloom hands are this game's version of Guardians.
Yes.
I don't think that they ever get as easy as Guardians are.
Yeah.
Like they
well,
never.
I think. So here's the thing: when you defeat the gloom hands, they turn into Phantom Ganon. I think Phantom Ganon gets easier.
Yes, I will agree. But the actual hands. Oh my gosh, they're so creepy. But
because if you run up on mountains or rocks, you can get away from them. So I mean, but there's this sheer panic that takes over you, and you're just watching as these hands are still clawing at you from below, and it's intense.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've been fighting Phantom Ganon throughout the game. If you ever defeated the Gloom Hands, and then he turned into it. So now it's the big final fight with Phantom Ganon, and throughout the game, the blood moons have been happening, and Zelda's been narrating it. And then when you get to Phantom Ganon, you find out, oh, that was Phantom Ganon that's been narrating the blood moons. And when Zelda does the blood moons, it's really sinister. And I kind of missed it when it was gone. I really enjoyed her narrating it.
I was really hoping that it would be Ganon narrating.
Yeah, I think that would have been cool if at that point it changed. Yeah,
because we'll get to it. Matthew Mercer is inspired in this game.
Yeah,
so good.
I really enjoyed Zelda's voice actress in this game.
Oh, I love her. I mean, I loved her in the last game too. But
she had a lot more to do in this game, and it was we'll get there.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, after that is kind of, you know, the time to go get the fifth sage, and then once you get the fifth sage, then it's time to go down into the chasm. Now we're going to put a pause on the actual synopsis because I do want to wait on the chasm until the end, and we can go ahead and start talking about some gameplay. So right here, Tulin's sage ability is kind of like a horizontal Rivali's Gale, which Rivali's Gale was fantastic in Breath of the Wild. Mm-hmm. This one, instead of pushing you up, it pushes you forward. Which, I mean, honestly, Rivali's Gale would not be anything in this game because, you know, everything's in the sky.
Right.
So I think this is, I mean, this is probably the best sage ability, definitely most used. Did you ever figure out how to use this in combat?
I don't think I ever tried it in combat.
So in combat, it's really fun because what I would do is like it would be like in one of those big fights, and then I'd see like, you know, big Macablin come up. I would go to Tulin. He would you know, put on the Gale, and then I would just, and the Macablins on the other side of the battlefield, I would just zip over to them and just start whacking on them. So it was a lot of fun. It's weird to use it in combat because it's very utility, but using it in combat, like, it feels so satisfying.
Yeah, and for me to say, oh, I didn't use that, that's because there's 1,000 things you can use.
Oh yeah,
in combat.
Yeah, definitely. I would say, for me, the one that I least used was probably Sidons, which we'll get to it.
I used Yonobo a lot just to tick people off. I just shoot him open to get their attention, or to catch the grass on fire so I could take off up into the sky. And
I was about to mention that because honestly, I think that Tulin and Yonobus are probably the most utility, because you can use them both in combat and out of combat. With Yonobu is this bowling ball, which causes fire, can break through
rocks and boulders and different things.
And whenever you're on like one of these minecart things, it actually acts as like a projectile, like a turret. So you can shoot like your like it's kind of like, do you remember Star Fox 64, the Landmaster mission where you had to shoot the flags?
Vaguely. It's been a minute.
I hate that mission, so it's forever etched in my memory.
Right.
I've replayed that mission so many times. But yeah, it's kind of like that, where you have to switch the switches so that way, the minecart will go one way or the other. Yonobu is a very, very useful, and I almost imagined that they gave him the useful one because they knew that people hated Yonobu from the first game, so they're like, we got to make this guy like useful so people love him. Sidons was the one that I used the least. Essentially, it's a hit of armor. So instead of taking a hit on your heart container, this just kind of tanks that hit for you, and then you can also use it as like a water projectile, which is really only useful in the water temple against the boss. So for the most part, this is no Mipha's Grace.
Yeah.
But it's just nice to have Sidon as an ally to fight, because he has the Zora Spear, which, for those who don't know, the Zora Spear is, without fuse, the strongest and most durable weapon in the game. So he has that by default, which is pretty cool. Reju's is really cool. This is very similar to Urbosa's Fury, which in Breath of the Wild, Urbosa's Fury kind of powers up your spin attack and causes lightning to come down and stun people. This one, lightning strikes a specific area, and it's wherever you shoot your bow, which is pretty cool. One thing that I don't know how I feel about it, because once you get Urbosa's Fury, Lionel's are nothing, because they get stunned and it does so much damage to Lionel's. Reju's Sage ability does not do anything to Lionel's. So I don't know how I feel about that, because it keeps the Lionel's difficult, but at the same time, I kind of miss one-shotting Lionel's.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. I most of the Sage abilities I really didn't use that much. I mean, the two you listed, Tula and Yonobo,
They are the two most useful.
Yeah, and then Maniru or whatever her name is.
Mhm.
She can be fun, and she's useful for crossing the gloom and the chasms and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Which let's go ahead and bring that up. The giant mech, it's so insane.
yeah,
And the cool thing, because the vow of the sages, they're kind of like astral projections. Minoru uh, does not have a physical body anymore because of Ganondorf. So she puts her spirit into this robot. It's so cool.
mm-hmm.
Oh man, we're getting closer and closer to that Cyberpunk Zelda game that I want.
Yeah, and what was cool is they showed this in the trailers, and we just thought, oh, it's a boss. We had no
Yeah,
clue that it was, going to be a helper and all
yeah.
this. So,
Oh yeah, we didn't realize that we were going to be able to ride it, and we were going to be able to customize it with flamethrowers and laser beams. I'm not joking. Flamethrowers and laser beams in Zelda.
yeah, it's pretty wild, the whole building system, what you
Which
can come up with.
I believe. Okay. So the Raru's the hand abilities are going to be next. I just wanted to briefly talk about the importance of armor in this game, because in Breath of the Wild, you could pretty much just use the champion's tunic and be good for the whole game. There was really no reason to use anything else unless there was like it was really hot and really cold.
Yeah,
In this game, armor is so important.
yeah, you will get your butt whooped pretty early on by a lot
Yes.
of people.
And like, so you've got your standard ancient Zonai toga, which is I actually love the look of the toga. I kind of wish it was better so I could keep using it.
Yeah,
But then you get like your champion's garb and the champion's tunic, which are two different things actually. Another cool thing is the I don't know what you call them, but like we'll just call them the legacy armor. They were amiibo exclusive in Breath of the Wild. You actually can get everything without
mm-hmm.
amiibo in this game.
I think the only thing you can't get is the glider, um, the different prints on the gliders.
Yes.
But
Which honestly, I don't think I collected glider prints, but I don't think I ever used them. I never.
the only one I used was what's his name, Bolson. Like I was advertising for Bolson everywhere I went. You know,
Gotcha. That's
just because I thought it was funny.
It's kind of. Imagine Link is just flying through the air, and then there's like a little flag on his back that says "Eat it, Joe's Crab Shack."
Yeah, it's like he's got like a glider that says Walmart on it, just flying into battle. You know.
But speaking of flying in the air, the air mobility armor, so useful. Because
I don't think I ever unlocked it.
Oh my gosh, I don't think I could have survived without that. Like,
I know my son had it on his game, but I don't think I ever got it on mine.
oh man, yeah, I mean, like for me, it was a necessity. Like you get places so much faster. I think the most useful ones are the ones that give you damage buffs, which the Fierce Deity armor is one of those. Did you ever get the Fierce Deity armor?
I do not recall. I know I had a lot of different Link specific armors towards the end. I don't recall.
Okay.
So upgrading your armors through the Great Fairies. In the first game of Breath of the Wild, did you just have to pay them money? Was that it to get them to upgrade, or did you have to do anything to unlock them?
There were no quests related. which
Yeah.
is what confused me at first.
This game's very different when it comes to the Great Fairies because some of those quests are tough to escort the musicians to the Great Fairies.
To give you perspective, before the final boss of Breath of the Wild, I had my Champion's Tunic leveled up max. I had it leveled up once by the time I got to the last boss. But yeah, so there's that. There's the one that gives you better air mobility, which is so super useful. And then there's one which I don't want to put any doubts on you, but at the same time, I doubt you got this set of armor because it took me like a week to do this, just to get the armor.
Well, I did stuff on my son's game and on my game. They're different. So yeah, he has different armors. I have different armor. So yeah, which armor is it you're talking about though?
It is the Zonai armor that reduces the use of the batteries whenever you're using something.
That does not ring a bell. No.
Okay, so there is an armor set where if you are wearing all pieces of armor, it reduces the use of the batteries by 50%, so that way you can use it twice as long.
Interesting.
It's very useful for the hover bikes.
So there was basically, I didn't really even use hover bikes that often. I had basically two sets of armor that I would alternate between. I had the gloom armor that would repel, the gloom.
Yes. So very, very useful.
And then I had my main armor, which was basically it was mostly the underground miner set, and I had painted it red. And then I would make scythes out of the Lizalfo's, was it horns or blades or something? So I always had a scythe. Yeah. And I think I called myself the Blood Ant or the Red Ant or something. I was just going around having adventures.
That's a lot of fun. And that's the thing is like, I think the side quests in this game, and we're not going to talk too much about side quests because honestly, I didn't do a whole lot of them. But just from what I have played, the side quests are just so much better.
Well, I kind of look like Deadpool almost, the armor and stuff. And so then when you get the house that you can unlock, I had this big painting on the wall of me and my armor, like a skeleton horse behind me and all this stuff. So
I made my guy kind of look like Virgil from Devil May Cry.
So I had 3 paintings in my house. One is the one I just described. The second one was of me and I don't know his name. The one that wants you to feed him all the frog crystal things. You know what I'm talking about? The one that the bulbous frogs or whatever.
Yes, yeah.
I had a picture of me and him on the wall. I had a picture of the horse stable thing in my house, and then I had a painting of a dead horse on the wall for him to look at all day.
That's so... Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah, I like to have fun when I play Zelda.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So I think it was Zelda's horse I had killed. It was like the golden horse, and my son's like, "You killed Zelda's horse, revive her." I was like, "No, I'm gonna leave it dead." He's like, "No, you gotta revive it."
That's a lot of fun. I think my main was so I would use the kind of like the Hyrule garb and the Champion's Tunic. I did the whole mayor election side quest with the mushrooms. So I did that whole thing, and at the very end, I knew what I was going to get at the end. And was it worth it? Probably not, but I did it anyway. You talk to her, and she's like, "Huh, I noticed that you've got your hood up, but you've got really nice hair. Why don't you put the hood down?" And then she puts the hood down for you.
Yeah.
And so that's what I used. And then sometimes what I would do is I would have the barbarian helmet, a mix of barbarian helmet. I would have the the gloom pants and the aerial mobility uh, uh, like tunic, and then I would use a royal claymore with fused with white Lionel blade, so it looked like Yamato from Devil May Cry, and I just pretend I was Virgil from Devil May Cry.
I did forget the other mask I used a lot was Link's Awakening, just because it looks so stupid, and I called it the serial killer mask, and I would just to make the cutscenes look so funny, just Link with his gigantic head. Yeah, just
Did you ever get the Majora's Mask?
no,
Okay.
because I couldn't kill Lionels.
Oh, okay.
Suck at killing Lionels.
I got really good at killing Lionels, just because like I would farm Lionels.
Yeah.
there came a point where I would farm Lionels.
I got pretty good at killing Gleeoks. I thought they were
I gotta be honest, I have not killed a Gleeok yet.
Yeah.
But world bosses, we'll get to world bosses. Those are gonna be fun. Let's go ahead and move on to the stars of the game. That's gonna be the Raru arm abilities. So we have Ultra Hand. Ultra Hand, for the most part, is kind of like a better Magnesis. Because Magnesis, you could only, lift up metal things. This one, it could be basically anything, and you could attach things to other things and make things. I feel like what I just said makes no sense, but is also the best descriptor of this entire game. You attach things to other things to make things.
And this ability basically breaks all the shrines. This
Yes.
and the, some of these abilities, and they kind of get around it by not letting you merge or not use the what are they called, the gumball items in the shrines. But if you merge it to your shield before you get into the shrine, you can still use them in there, and it really breaks the game.
Yep. That's one thing that I'll mention. So the temples are better than the ancient beasts.
Oh, definitely.
I think for the most part, shrines are less interesting in this game.
I would agree. I also think though that you could also break the dungeons just like you could break the shrines.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There was a lot of times I climbed up like the outside of dungeons and skipped like huge sections of the dungeons and stuff. And especially the fire temple, I was skipping on, because a lot of those train puzzles got annoying after a while. And you could just, skip around in there and stuff. So very cool. So what's the next ability you want to talk about?
Well, I just want to mention this. This is in a Zelda game. This is in a Zelda game.
Yeah.
I'm flying.
Yeah, and they kind of foreshadowed this with the motorcycle DLC from the last game, and you're kind of like, why is this the game? And now it makes total sense now that you're in Tears of the Kingdom.
And real quick before we move on to Fuse, I want to mention the batteries that we have there. You don't get to use these for free. There are you have to. So here's the thing. This game it's a Zelda game, but it is also Minecraft and Fortnite. Okay.
Yeah, there's definitely elements there, and you really have to earn these batteries.
Yes. How many did you end up with by the end of your playthrough?
I had all of them by the end. Yeah.
All of them?
Yeah. I filled it up all the way. I had the little belt on Link's thing all the way full. Yeah.
Jeez. Okay. I only got 5.
Oh no. I had to work for them. Yeah.
But yeah. And so, like I said, the armor that I worked for, basically doubles the amount of batteries you have because it reduces your battery usage by 50%. And so, like, as you're in the air, or even whenever you're using Minaru's Sage abilities, it uses battery. Pretty much anything that you don't think belongs in a Zelda game, the battery is what keeps it balanced for the most part.
Yeah. yeah, I definitely had to farm a lot to get all those batteries and stuff, and you figure out where the best places are to get um, those items. So, yeah. So the construction, did you get good at building vehicles? I was
Yes,
I got pretty good. Like I would build like different cars and stuff with laser beams on them and stuff, but I didn't build like the crazy stuff you see online where people have
I
like
didn't. I
flying
didn't.
death machines and stuff. I didn't do anything like that.
Yeah, I didn't build the major stuff, but I got pretty good at like eventually I actually did make my own motorcycle. I actually made I don't know what you would call it, like a unicycle, like only one wheel. So yeah, I got pretty good at it. I did not make a Gundam at all.
Yeah, I would just kind of build the quickest thing to get the job done. I wouldn't get totally crazy like
Yeah.
the online or some of the stuff online where they have like orbiting satellites like spinning around shooting lasers and stuff. It's just like, okay, I have no clue how you built that.
I think my personal favorite is people built lawnmowers. Um,
What?
so they built lawnmowers, and then they
Uh-huh.
would take it into Hyrule Field, and they would also have a scooper, so that way it would farm materials by cutting the grass. So
I
like they
saw
that
some boats like that where it had like a scooper to scoop up the dead fish and it would kill the fish and you could ride around it.
well,
Yeah.
and so here's the thing: getting rupees in this game is not as easy as it was in Breath of the
No,
Wild.
it's definitely
Uh,
not.
so they would take the lawnmowers and they would like because you would cut grass and get rupees, so that's how they farmed rupees. Is they were literally farming is what they were doing.
Yeah, yeah. Rupee system is definitely. I definitely spent a lot of time trying to get rupees or try to get ore that I could sell, or cook certain meals that I could sell just to make money in this game.
Yeah. So next up we have Fuse.
Hmm.
Fuse is the one that like going into the game I was very hesitant about because I'm like, oh, that's so stupid. Like people are gonna start fusing like their swords with mushrooms and it's gonna be dumb. I didn't know what I was talking about. This is like one of the best parts of the game.
Oh
It
yeah,
didn't register to me that like the horns would fall off of like enemies and you could use those as like the black boss bokoblin horn. You make your sword into an axe.
yep.
It's so sick.
Yeah. Like I said,
Uh
I would follow a lot of those alphas just to make a lot of scythes. I know a lot of people are making katana blades and stuff. It's
yeah,
really
that's what I
cool.
would the katana. So it was the silver Lionel horns. That's what I would farm. And that's how you make like your giant katana blades.
Yeah, it's really the whole system here, and then once you get the I can't keep forgetting what they're called, the gumball items, where you can put like a
Uh,
spring on your shield, or you can
yeah,
merge a mine cart onto your shield like a skateboard. There's just so many cool things that you can do.
the spring on the shield. It didn't register me until like close to the end of the game for me. That I'm like, oh, so the spring is the mirror shield in this game.
Well, I would use it though to fly up into the air. You know, you
Oh,
jump
okay.
on it like you're going to slide down a hill, and you bounce like super high. So, like when I'd go to what's it called, Eventide Island, and they have like those fortress, I stay around behind the back, and I'd spring over the spikes and go
I
flying into their base and just unload on them. Yeah.
see that I didn't even think about. That's really cool. Now I'm talking about the fact that a Gleeok would like shoot a fireball at you, and then you would spring the fireball back at them.
So it blows my mind how the heck did they test this game?
They didn't. They didn't. They just. I'm pretty sure they just started throwing stuff at the wall, and they're like, "Oh, it all stuck."
Because it blows my mind. There's so many different combinations, and what happens when this combination hits that combination? It had to be a nightmare for the testers to try to test different things, and you know the fact that this game does not crash constantly, especially with the ability to swim upwards through roofs and mountains and stuff. It's mind blowing that this game works at all.
Yeah. Let's see what else we got. We've got yeah. So and then you've got like your dragon pieces that you can merge, which are really cool. We'll vaguely mention the dragons. There's really only one that matters in this game. But you mentioned Ascend. Ascend, I think, is low key one that breaks the game. Because like you can, if you hit the right spot, you can you can climb a mountain in 2 seconds.
Yeah, there was a lot of moments where I'm trying to get it to turn green. I'm sitting there moving just slightly. Okay, there it is, boom, and then you just take off.
No, legit. There are times whenever I'm just mashing the A button, waiting for it to like, waiting for it to like turn green for 1 second, and then it works. I love Ascend. Ascend is so cool. Towards the beginning of the game, I don't know if you felt this, that you would forget that you have it.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of things you're like, oh right, I can just I can skip all this. Yeah.
There came a point where I never forgot, and this became one of my most used abilities. I love this ability so much.
And then you also use it in combat against the giant stone taluses.
Yes.
Sometimes I could get that to work great, and then other times I just had the camera in the wrong spot. And I just could not get it to turn green. It would get frustrating, and that's more on me and my abilities. But I got to a point where I was hunting the giant stone taluses because you needed rupees. You had to get the ore to sell, and so yeah.
Now recall is a fun one.
I forget, that's the one I forget I have and I rarely used.
Well, it's also the least practical, unfortunately.
I've seen some people do some pretty crazy stuff with recall. I just using it in combat stuff. It does not. My brain doesn't work that way where it comes to mind that quick. Like, oh, I can recall that while it's in midair because it's happening so fast.
So the use for recall that I got was like, so they obviously want you to use recall on the falling rocks, so that way you can get up to the islands faster, right? So obviously use it for that. One thing that I would use it for sometimes, and honestly, there came a point where like it's a cool thing, but there were just more efficient ways to defeat enemies, was like you take like a giant stone slab with Ultra Hand and you would wave it around a bunch, and then you would recall, and then during the recall it would like start hitting the enemies and doing a lot of damage.
Gotcha. I used it a lot fighting likes is when I would use it the most, just to shoot the boulders back into their mouth and kill them and stuff.
Oh yeah. But yeah, this one definitely I would be surprised if this wasn't everyone's least used. But it's still a lot of fun.
It has the most learning curve out of all of them.
Yes, absolutely.
And I could see this be one of those things that breaks the game as people get more into the speed running and stuff.
I am so excited for speed running. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Because Breath of the Wild speedruns, those are so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
And like with this game, it's almost like they were so mad that people broke their precious Breath of the Wild. Like, you want to break a game? Go ahead, break this game. We dare you, break it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one was a lot of fun. So let's move on to the dragon tiers. You did all the dragon tiers, right?
Oh yeah.
So the dragon tiers actually tell the story of what happens.
Yeah, and I think the difference between you and me is you did them in order. I did not.
I did do them in order, yes.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't explicitly look up what the order was. I just saw the fact in the Forbidden Ruins that they gave you the order.
Right.
Which I've talked about that before. But in chronological order, essentially, Zelda is the Sage of Time. And she goes back in time to the establishment of Hyrule with her ancestors, Rauru and Sonia. Now, she's, talking about how the sages have to help Link, in the future to defeat Ganon. Well, Ganondorf is actually already there because he is from this time frame. This is not our Ganondorf that we're used to. This is a different Ganondorf, which, like I said, I have my theories towards the end. We'll get to there. But essentially, the imprisoning war happens. Zelda takes part in it.
We see Sonya get betrayed and die. Ganon steals her tear. And early on in the game, Link sent his damaged Master Sword back in time to Zelda. And we see Zelda have to make some tough decisions here.
Yes. So she actually, essentially what happens that they learn is whenever you eat your sacred stone, which is kind of weird, but when you eat your sacred stone, it turns you into a dragon. And so...
And it's not like temporarily a dragon. You are a dragon forever.
You're permanently a dragon.
Yeah.
And so she eats her sacred stone and embeds the Master Sword into her head so that way she can restore it.
Yeah, she's going to fuse her energy into it so that it'll be ready by the time Link needs it thousands of years in the future or however long it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this cutscene is so good. I've watched several reactions to it on YouTube. This is just one of the best cutscenes that Nintendo's ever done.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Here, the dragon tears. I love the memories. The memories are really cool, and it tells you a lot about Link. But I mean, the dragon tears are just so much better. I love them.
And it makes sense story-wise that when she turns into a dragon, the tears are flying. She's crying, and the name of the game and stuff. And this is the first. I won't say it's the first Zelda game, but this is the one that mostly feels like this is Zelda's story.
Yes.
There have been other ones like Zelda 2 was all about the sleeping princess and stuff, but
this is the Legend of Zelda.
This is the Legend of Zelda. This really feels like it earned the title.
And I mean, she's crying, she's alone, or is she alone? Wait until my theories at the end.
Okay. I was like, what are you talking about? Okay. But yeah, this what's cool is you see this dragon very early on in the game at Sky Island. And you're like, okay, it's a dragon, cool. And it doesn't, the game's dropping hints and that, but you have no clue what it's trying to tell you.
I think the biggest hint that it will drop to you is A, this is a blonde dragon. B, this is obviously a female dragon.
Yeah.
Like, it's very, very obvious. But you don't notice it.
No, because you are when she first appears, you're still being wowed by Sky Island.
Yeah.
You're still taking in everything else, and yeah, it kind of flies over your head.
Yeah, plus like the last game, they're like, oh, they added a fourth dragon. That's cool.
Yeah. And so you have to wonder about those other three dragons. These were just guys that ate their their tears or whatever, and transformed. It's interesting.
And so this is actually where you would grab and pull the Master Sword. This is the best Master Sword pull.
Oh yeah, without question. Really cool sequence. Really cool scene. Of course, that picture looks epic. Picture that with the Link with a gigantic Link's Awakening head. That's what I was seeing.
You did it with the Link's Awakening head?
I'm sure I did. There's several cutscenes that were real serious. I'm sitting there with my big Link's Awakening head.
No, I did it with the hood. That's
okay.
What I did. No, I played this game as canonically as possible.
Oh no, I was trying to be as silly as possible, ruining every scene possible. Just Anything I can do to make it silly.
I might do that. Honestly, on a second playthrough, I'd like to do all the major cutscenes naked. I think that'd be really funny.
Yeah. I'm telling you, get that underground miner set and paint different colors. You look really cool. I can't remember what pants I was using. I think that was the only part that I didn't. I had something different. Was the pants, but it looked pretty cool.
We have bosses in this game. We have real bosses in this game. Colgera is the easiest boss in the game. Don't at me.
Well, he is, but also I would try to avoid him in the chasm, and I'm like, I don't have time to fight you. And you'd hear him like hovering above you or near you, and it's kind of freaky.
Yeah, no, that's the cool thing is you defeat them at the temple, and then they teleport down to the chasm, and you can fight them again if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Colgera is a fun boss. Essentially, you gotta shoot him with arrows in like his certain spots. I think it's very interesting that most likely this is because you can do these in any order, but most likely Colgera is the first boss you fight, and how eerily similar this is to the final fight as well. Just having to destroy stuff on a dragon looking thing. But yeah, I like Colgera. I was so glad. So for those of you who don't know, I love every Goma boss fight. The Queen Goma in Ocarina of Time, in Twilight Princess, you got the armored Goma, the Goma on Dragon Roost Island and Wind Waker. I love Goma fights. I love this Goma fight too. This one's a lot of fun because the Goma's crawling up on like the ceiling, and so you have to use Yunobu's boulder ability, so that way it kind of curves upwards, so that way you can hit him off the ceiling. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that is a fun fight.
Yeah. Speaking of fun fights, Mukdarok's not a fun fight. This one's not fun at all, and I hate it.
I had a picture of him like falling on his face, and I had him sculpted in the town of.
This one's so not fun at all because like there's like ink and mud everywhere, and
it reminds me of Mario Sunshine, where it's like
it really is. Except instead of damaging you, which I would have rather it damage you, it just slows you down to a crawl, which is so much more annoying.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I actually did fight them all at least one time in the depths as well. This is the one that I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta fight this one again.
Yeah.
And then Queen Gibdo. So they do Gibdos really interesting in this game because Gibdos are not mummies. For the most part, it seems like that these are parasites that kind of possess corpses, and so they're bug human hybrids, and they're really creepy. Queen Gibdo's a fun boss fight because it actually starts outside the Thunder Temple, and then you're constantly fighting the Queen Gibdo throughout the Lightning Temple.
It says it right there on the screen. Lightning
Temple. I know. I saw it.
I had a little trouble with this boss. I think when I was playing on my son's account, first few times I fought it, it was a little difficult. But by the time I got to it, my account, I had because my son he would like be way ahead of me in the game. He's like, "Oh, play this boss," and I hadn't learned the mechanics of fighting the Gibdos and stuff. He just hated me a controller, and so I really struggled with this one because I did not know, And then when I played on mine, it made a lot more sense, So He does that to me a lot. So here, play this Pikmin thing. I haven't learned how to play it. No, you'll be fine. And I'm dying and stuff. And
so for the most part, the main 4 temples, they're all great. And we have temples, we have boss fights. Things are right in the Zelda universe again. And then we come to the Seized Construct. Essentially, this is a game of rock and sock'em robots.
It turns into arms. Yeah, the typical arms. And it was all right. It felt a little out of place. But there's always something in these Zelda games that feels out of place. You always get to some weird boss or something. And
you know what? I changed my mind. I said that Calgera was the easiest boss fight. Calgera was not the easiest boss fight. It's this, and Calgera was more cinematic as well. There's nothing cinematic about this one.
Yeah.
This is probably the worst boss fight.
So why don't we, because we're running a little bit low on time. You want to go ahead? Okay, yeah, we can talk to you, but yeah, let's talk about Yuga Clan real quick.
So we can definitely move quicker. There are world bosses.
This is the one thing I forgot to go finish. I forgot to go deal with him at the end. I had the initial fights, but I forgot all about.
Did you fight Koga in Breath of the Wild?
Yeah, where you throw him into the pit or whatever.
Yeah, it's super easy. Koga is actually difficult in this game.
Yeah.
There's a point where you have to like do a boat chase in the last fight. It's a lot of fun, but like I'm just like, okay, Koga, okay. But yeah, you've got Koga's a world boss and is a lot of fun. This is the one that we were talking about where like you use the no, this is a different one because what you got to do is you use Ultra Hand to shake off the boxes.
Yeah, this one I liked, but every once in a while I get frustrated. There were times it flew too high up in the air where you could not hit it. And it just depended on which one you were fighting if you were able to get up there and hit him. So I like the idea of this boss, but sometimes it got frustrating.
Yeah. Then you've got your Lionels, of course. Lionels are classic. I love Lionels. And then finally, this is the one that like I think was the surprise for everybody. Was the Gleeoks.
Yeah, they're pretty fun to fight. They're also terrifying. Especially when you're trying to like find a special horse and you're trying to sneak past the Gleeok to get to the horse, and it's like, ugh.
Oh, for me, I'm just like, you know what? I've always liked the Faroe forest. Let me head on over to the to the Bridge of Eldin over by Lake Hylia. Let me see what's over there. And then like as I'm walking there, I'm like, and it hasn't explicitly loaded in the game yet. I'm just like, okay, I see and it was nighttime, so I'm like, there's something lighting up over there. What is that? Getting closer. And then it's like King Gleeok, and I'm like, what? I had no idea Gleeoks were in this game.
The worst one for me was when I fell into a chasm. It wasn't Death Mountain, but it was near there. And I'm just walking, and it's pitch black, and also it just says Gleeok dead. And I was like, what? No. Get me out of here. Get me out of here.
But yeah, so we can go ahead and talk about the chasm. The chasm is really cool. So once you have the 5th stage, once you've collected your team, you head below Hyrule Castle into the Hyrule Chasm. And it's super sick because like it's almost like another temple where you gotta like make your way through. I'm gonna go ahead and be completely honest. There's that point whenever you don't have like your party with you, and you have to fight another one of Gloom Hands. I skipped that. I just was like, no, I'm not doing this. I ran. I just ran.
Yeah, it gets tricky down there. There's a lot of parts where you're wounded and outnumbered, and you're like, okay, I'm not going to sneak past this or skip this. Yeah, it's.
And then I think one of the coolest parts was kind of like the the all-out war outside of the chasm room.
Yeah.
Where the sages appear, and it's not. Here's the coolest thing: it's not their astral projections. The sages are there to help you fight. It's so cool. And so, like, you go through, oh man, probably about 5 waves. And then, so there was a part that at first it scared me, and then it disappointed me. Because Colgera, Goma, Muktarok, and Queen Goma, and then the Sea's Contra, they all appear again. And I thought, I'm like, is this going to be like a boss rush, or like, are we going to have to fight all of the bosses at the same time? And then Tulin's like, head on in there, Link, we got this.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's kind of disappointing. But this is whenever you fight Ganondorf. So Ganondorf is just wonderful. Matthew Mercer knows how to play a villain. I would love it if so whenever they eventually get to the Vecna stuff in Legend of Vox Machina, I need him to be played by Matthew Mercer, and I need him to use this voice. So essentially he absorbs the gloom. Instead of being a lich, then he becomes his normal self. Like, and this boss fight is relatively easy. This one you can cheese out with just some headshots and just take him down. Then he powers up into Super Saiyan 4. And this is where it gets really cool, because there's him, and then he's got like 3 clones of himself. The sages come in and save you. What did you think of the health bar?
Where it like goes off the screen or whatever?
Yeah, where it goes off the screen.
Yeah, that's always fun. You're like, wait, stop.
And then, of course, Ganon has his favorite game, tennis.
Of course.
Where he shoots his fireballs at you, and you gotta hit him back. My personal favorite is like the ones that would lift up from the ground and surround you, and then what you would have to do is you have to do a spin attack, and they'd all hit him at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. You have any thoughts on, because really this is the final boss, and then the next boss is essentially a cutscene. Any thoughts on this?
It was fun game fights. I really enjoyed the next part of
okay.
what happens.
Okay. So like for me, like this is like the epic part. You actually prefer.
It when it happened, I was like, of course, that makes total sense.
I will say
turned into the dragon.
Yes. So you beat Ganondorf. He eats his tear, and he becomes the Demon King Dragon. And Zelda comes in to help fight. And so it's essentially like you're this ant amidst the fight of 2 dragons, and it's so cool. This is way better than Beast King Ganon or whatever it was.
Oh yeah, definitely. This is earned. Yeah, I was going to say this is such payoff for what you've been through, and it just feels right,
And one thing that I think is cool is so you go from there are 4 different orifices that you have to destroy on the dragon, and then just as you pulled the sword out of the light dragon, you impale the Demon King Dragon. It is so cool.
And this is a repeated Zelda trope of that's where Ganon usually gets stabbed.
Yes.
yeah, I just thought this was so appropriate. Now, one of the things I did not like about the ending was I like a more tragic story. I would have left Zelda a dragon at the end. I would have not
Well,
have restored her.
here's the thing. That's actually what I was happy about that, because I'm like, this is really sad. Like I said, it is. I think it is explicit that they are together. You've got the Letterman jacket thing. You got the fact that they're living together. Man, that's gotta suck that your girl is a dragon.
Yeah, I
Um,
just think it's at the end you defeat him and he sees the dragon fly off and his arm decays and falls off. And it's just a Link with one arm and Zelda flying off. And maybe that's your cliffhanger Empire Strikes Back ending is, and then how do they fix that in the next game or something? That's probably where I would have done it. But it's Nintendo; they're gonna give you a happy ending.
well, not just that, but then we wouldn't have gotten my favorite part of the game, which is dive for Zelda. I loved that.
Yeah, yeah, that is really cool.
So essentially, she is healed in midair.
Yeah, thanks,
And
Raru.
so Raru, Sonia, and Link combine their powers to heal her. But she is healed in midair, so she is falling, she is passed out. Link has to dive for her before she hits the ground. And it is so cool. I love it. Uh, and that's the game. You beat the Demon King, you heal Zelda, and she says there's so much I have to tell you. And also, there's another thing that she says, that I think makes this pretty explicit. She says, "I was, I lived for so long. I traveled through time, lived for so long, and then all of a sudden, a warm, loving embrace. That warm, loving embrace has to be Link healing her." I don't normally ship characters this hard, but these two I definitely do. I'll join this team. um, but yeah, that is Tears of the Kingdom.
So, complaints about the game. One of the issues I had was you get to a point where what's up with Zelda, and the cutscenes still act like you don't know.
Yeah.
it got a little frustrating where you're talking to all the different stages. You're like, well, we got to keep investigating. I was like, no, I saw the tears. I know what happened.
My complaint is also my complaint. It's gonna be my complaint with these types of games is pacing is all over the place.
Sure.
In fact, I skipped two major parts, just because I knew what I was doing. So, like, did you heal the Deku Tree?
Did I? Yes.
I didn't. Did you go straight to the 5th stage, or did you investigate the Zonai ruins first?
I didn't go straight there, but also I didn't go to the Zonai ruins either first.
Oh, okay. So my thing is the fact that I've been on board with Zeltic and Monster Maze and all these people. I've been studying the Zonai since Breath of the Wild as well. And so whenever it is like, we got to investigate the Zonai ruins, go to this person. I'm like, yo, I know about the Zonai ruins. And so I skipped a whole part to get to the 5th stage. Yeah, pacing is the only thing that I would have to complain about this game. And that's why Ocarina of Time is going to be my number one, because Ocarina of Time's pacing is unmatched. But yeah, other than that, this is quite a game.
Quite a game. So real quick, what's your theories? And we'll.
Okay. So, obviously the gloom or the calamity started as like residue of
Raru's
gloom.
power was fading, and so stuff was starting to seep out, and
And so that's not explicitly said, and so this is my least interesting theory because I think this is the one that is most obvious.
Mm-hmm.
2, is Zelda alone that whole time being a dragon? Because at the end of the game, the Master Sword lights up and it makes the sound. And so my theory is that throughout those hundreds of years or however long it was, I think Fee was keeping her company.
Okay.
I think Fee was keeping her company.
I would fight back against that because she's kind of mindless, like a beast when you encounter her. I think she's lost all of her humanity at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be my only pushback against that theory.
Sure. Number 3, and this is my big one. This is the one that I've been working on for like 2 months.
Your thesis.
Yes. So here we have
the timeline,
the Zelda timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And they have said that Breath of the Wild is at the end of all 3 timelines, right?
Okay.
It is because of Raru and Ganondorf. See, I would theorize that and this is where I'm struggling. I don't know if the Dragon Tears are before or after Skyward Sword.
I believe it's before.
You think it's before Skyward Sword?
Well, I've watched some videos that have suggested that, and they made sense. That was several months ago, though, so I don't remember what exactly they said, but they had a pretty good argument.
Sure. Well, at the end of the Dragon Tears, Raru seals away Ganondorf under Hyrule Castle in the Hyrule Chasms.
Mm-hmm.
And just think about this. Throughout the Minish Cap, 4 Swords, Ocarina of Time, the original Legend of Zelda, there is a Ganondorf that is underneath you the entire time, being held by...
and there's a Zelda dragon.
And there's a Zelda... Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, this is how the timeline is fixed. Because the timeline splits into 3 places, but it doesn't matter. Because at the end of all of them, the Demon King Ganondorf will rise again through the gloom.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how the timeline is mended, is because it doesn't matter if the hero is defeated here, or if, he's a child, or if he's an adult, because the Demon King Ganondorf is always there and will always rise. The calamity will always happen. The gloom will always rise. The upheaval will happen. Because the imprisoning war was before the split. And so it's actually the imprisoning war and the upheaval that mends the timelines.
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting that, okay, let's say that Tears of the Kingdom, the flashbacks at least, are at the beginning of the timeline. We see Ganondorf put the tear on his forehead, and then that is always, well, not always, but most games, when you defeat Ganondorf, you're stabbing him at the head where that tear would be, or with Demise, there's a big X across his forehead, like where the tear would be. So it's almost like all the games have been referencing this in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that was, not planned. I'm sure that was just a happy accident, but still, I think I think it works better if this is the very beginning and very end of the timeline as we know it at the moment.
Yes.
I think putting it after Skyward Sword kind of makes it, I would rather it be at the very beginning.
I agree because the logo itself is an Ouroboros.
Mm-hmm.
And an Ouroboros is a dragon that eats its own tail.
Mm-hmm.
So it's causing a circle and it's
Hey,
infinite.
I've been watching a lot of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood lately, Ouroboros. So yeah, we know all about them. Continue on.
But yeah, so that is my theory. My theory is that it is because of Demon King Ganondorf that the timeline is now mended. And now that the timeline is mended, you really don't have to worry about the timeline anymore.
Yeah, I'd rather them move away from that. So, uh, I don't know if you want to talk about this or not, but where do we go from here? Do we get a third Breath of the Wild type game?
So, are you all ready for my hot take?
Sure.
Here we go. I don't want them to ever use Ganondorf again.
Oh, that's a horrible hot take. Get out of here.
Hold on. This is the end. There's nothing. This is it. Okay? Like this Ganondorf, like where else do you go with Ganondorf? This
Well,
is the end.
we kind of thought he was in the last game, or at least Ganon was, but he really wasn't. It was the I'm drawing a blank, the Calamity Ganon and all that. Yeah, but I feel like they're setting up a trilogy. Like, if you look at like the energies used, like this one was all red energy, and then last game was a lot of like green. Uh, I feel like it's a trilogy. Like, you know, the Triforce is 3 parts: the wisdom, power, and courage. Um, but it also, you could also say that Skyward Sword was the first part of the trilogy, and so it's like, is there another part of the story, or is it done? I don't know.
I personally think that the story's done. Um, and here's the thing: whenever I say never use Ganondorf again, I'm talking about like I need this to be the last Zelda game.
Well,
In the timeline.
oh, in the timeline, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So like if they were to make another Zelda game, like they did Breath of the Wild, and then after that they did Link Between Worlds, and they established that Link Between Worlds was in the Hero Fallen timeline. At this point, I need this game to be both the beginning and the end of the Zelda timeline. And now, whenever you make a Zelda game, just and be explicit about it. Don't just be like, okay, this is a game that takes place during the child era. This is during the adult. You know,
I don't think it's a Legend of Zelda. They're never explicit because it's a legend. The facts aren't going to quite fit.
they were pretty explicit about Link Between Worlds, though.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if you want to say this is the final appearance ever of Ganondorf, and maybe he comes back as Ganon from this point on, I think I might be okay with that. But
I'm more saying, like, if you want to use Ganondorf for Ganon or anything, then it's got to be a game that takes place before this. I need this.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I need this to be the final confrontation.
You don't want any Darth Vader stories after Return of the Jedi. I get it. I don't know. I feel like we're going to revisit this type of game using this map maybe one more time, and then that's it. I don't think you could keep revisiting this map over and over. But
I do think it's interesting that we thought that they were doubling the size, but they ended up tripling the size.
Yeah, I think that they could have done some more stuff with the sky, maybe.
Yes, definitely. The sky does feel empty.
And I don't know. It sounds greedy. I wanted more with the temples or more temples, but they gave us all kinds of caves in this game and everything else. There's a lot in this game. It's just overall just a really great game. Yeah. Just the amount of stuff that's packed in here. My complaints are so minor at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're gonna get DLC like the Master Trials or Champions.
Yeah, I'd be very curious what that looks like. Definitely.
I'm trying to think of like what's the. I'm trying to think of what because with Champions Ballad, their hanging fruit was the Sheikah. And so I'm wondering if their version of Champions Ballad would go even more into the Zonai.
I assume they'll give us more Zonai gumball things to play with and something, and then some type of challenge to overcome, whether that's more bosses or temples or what, who knows.
You know what would be really cool?
What's that?
Is if now that Zelda's healed, she becomes a part of your party too.
Yeah, playable Zelda would be great, or having her part of the party, would be a fun DLC to have. Definitely.
Yeah, and hers, this is just me spitballing. Her ability would be kind of like the stasis ability from the last game, where you freeze enemies in place.
Sure. Yeah. Or almost if it was like she automatically would do recall and stuff for you, so you didn't have to set up. Just a battle, she would just start doing recall automatically or something. Yep. So that is our talk on Tears of the Kingdom. If you haven't played this game, like my brother, who refuses to play these games, what is wrong with you?
My brother too, because he's like, I don't know, I got to beat Breath of the Wild first, and I'm like,
no, I can't get my brother to play Breath of the Wild. And I'm like, I will buy this game for you. No, I don't have time. Anyhow, next week we will have our Wolverine and the X-Men discussion. We previously had gone through Rick Remender's Uncanny X-Force, and this kind of is a other part of the story. So we will be going over X-Men Schism parts 1 through 5. There is a book called X-Men Regenesis. You don't have to read that one, but it kind of just goes over who's going to the school and who's not. And then we will review Wolverine and X-Men 1 through 18 and Avengers versus X-Men.
Do you want to do Avengers? Do you want to do all of that in one show?
Yeah, I'm saying yes right now. We'll see how this week goes, because that's a lot to read.
Yeah. It might be.
Worst case scenario, we might just do like 1 through 12 of Wolverine and the X-Men. I'm not sure. I'd have to look and see when the crossover started in Wolverine and the X-Men with AVX, because it happens pretty soon after it starts. Because I think that's why I said 1 through 18, because that was kind of the end of the AVX, and it's also kind of a cliffhanger ending. It's a good stopping point. So I'm really curious to get your take on this book. It's one of my favorites. I'm sitting here clicking stuff. Let me close that. Anyhow, it's kind of a more lighthearted take on the X-Men, but I really enjoy it. I really like the kids, the students, and I want someone else to experience and tell me if I'm crazy or not. So yeah, if you like Kid Omega, Quentin Quire,
I do. I love.
It's a lot of him. It's a lot of ID. They set up ID quite a bit in X-Men Schism, so I was just rereading that. And then we get other fun characters like Brew and Genesis from Uncanny X-Force is going to be showing up. Kid Gladiator, just all kinds of fun stuff. So that'll be next week's show. I really enjoy going over these old comic book storylines that people kind of missed or ignored. I don't know about you, but I really enjoy reading these. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. I like going through, like, because I feel like the lost time of comic books is like from 2008 to like 2014, maybe 2016.
Yeah, I feel like there's this point where it's almost like when Quesada stepped down as editor, things got weird.
I don't know. It's so weird because it's like, and not just Marvel, but also DC. It's like whenever Iron Man and Dark Knight came out, the movies became more popular, but the comic books got less popular.
So we'll see how this week goes. AVX starts with Wolverine the X-Men issue number 9. So
maybe we can do Schism and then 1 through 9, and then
1 through 8. Schism and 1 through 8, and then we'll save
okay.
AVX for the next episode.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the plan. That way, I'm not sitting here reading 100 comic books this week.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and that'll give you a good taste of what this book is like.
And I do love Schism.
Yeah, Schism, I forgot how good this was because I reread that this past week. It's a pretty good story.
Yeah.
So, all right. Until next time, I've been FinalMonkey.
And I'm Caleb.
And we will see you next time in the pool with Pop Culture Shark. See ya.
See ya.